Welcome to week 3 of the Authentic Mindfulness series on the Harp and Wellness YouTube channel. In this series, I am teaching different ways to incorporate mindfulness in your everyday life. Mindfulness is about so much more than just sitting in meditation, being still and silent. Many people don't realize this, and they shy away from meditation as a result. But mindfulness isn't just a trend that is happening right now in wellness. These types of practices can help to boost your well-being, boost your health and immune system, and also regulate your vitals. So I encourage you to think outside the box when it comes to mindfulness and learn what activities and practices work for you. If you're just joining me, I will leave links to the 2 previous Authentic Mindfulness videos in the description box below. 2 weeks ago, I debunked the myths of meditation. And then last week, I led you in a mindfulness exercise where you can incorporate mindfulness in everyday mundane activities. This week, I am teaming up with my good friend and partner in wellness, Alex Pitkin-Morin of Live Green, Be Well. Alex is a registered dietitian, and she and I are always looking for fun ways to combine our expertise. A couple of months ago, I asked her if she wanted to join me in doing a mindful cooking and eating exercise based on one of her recipes. So here we are. Alex's recipe for this dish will be up on her blog at www.livegreenbewell.com, and I will post a link to that recipe in the description box below. As always, I encourage you to create this dish yourself so that you can experience this mindfulness exercise firsthand. If you do participate in this exercise at home, leave a comment below and let me know how it goes. Here's how today's video is structured. Alex will be teaching you how to cook the recipe while also showing you the many health benefits of preparing and cooking food mindfully. Afterward, I will be using her recipe to guide you in an eating meditation. The timestamps for both Alex's and my parts of the video are below in case you want to navigate to different sections of this video. This style of mindful cooking and eating can be used with any recipe, so feel free to use this as a guide anytime with any dish. All right, let's get cooking.
Hi everyone, Alex here with Live Green Be Well, and today I'm collaborating with Nicole from Harp and Wellness to do a mindfulness and eating meditation. And it's also important when you think about cooking to choose recipes that are really wholesome, seasonally appropriate in the ingredients list, and also foods that bring you joy. Right? Cooking can be stressful for some folks, and so it's important to remember how cooking can really nourish us and keep us healthy and also give us some of that really energizing life force, vitamins and minerals, and is really a great way to unwind at the end of the day or to prepare something that you know is going to be enjoyable for you and your family. So today I'm making an apple crisp. It's very timely for the season. You know, apples and pumpkins are what we tend to think about when we think of the fall. And it's also important that when you're looking at recipes, choosing something that's locally grown, sustainable, seasonal, and easy, right? We don't want to have recipes that are too cumbersome with really long ingredients and directions lists, because that's when people tend to get frustrated in the kitchen. So my recipe is super simple. It's got apples, oats, almond flour, cinnamon, coconut oil, and honey. And the honey is local to New Hampshire, as well as the apples that we have selected. And so I'm going to walk through sort of how we prepare it, but also ways that you can really focus on the mindfulness of preparing the food. So think chopping apples, think measuring ingredients, and why we're choosing the ingredients that we're choosing. And when you think about the fall transitioning into winter, especially in New England, a lot of people tend to feel that seasonal depression. You know, the seasons are changing, so we want things that are warm. We're indoors more often, and we tend to gravitate towards sweets and treats. So if you can choose recipes and ingredients that are still healthful for us and still will help us improve our mood and give us energy, then it's a win-win. So the oats and apples contain fiber, and that's really important to help stabilize our blood sugar. And whether we like to admit it or not, when we have a sweet treat, we might feel good in the moment, but then we get that crash. So the oats and the apples help stabilize our blood sugar to prevent that dip and that fatigue. And the other thing that's interesting about oats is that they're high in iron. And so a lot of folks are iron deficient, and so being able to choose foods that are high in iron can actually help boost our iron levels that would then help combat fatigue or things like that. So when we think about foods high in fiber, helps with mood, boosts our mood level, helps ward off seasonal depression, and also we think of apples, very seasonally appropriate. It's fun to go apple picking with friends and family if you can, or pick some up at a local farm stand. You're supporting our food system and really getting to see firsthand where the food comes from. So without further ado, let's get started. So in order to make our apple crisp, it's important to make sure you have all the ingredients ready. A stress-free cooking experience means being prepared. And so having all the ingredients handy is important, as well as making sure that you've washed and prepped your apples for this recipe. So I am not going to peel the apples. I'm going to just add the peels right in there because they do contain extra fiber, and once they're cooked in the crisp, it kind of gives it an interesting color and texture. And I like to minimize the amount of waste that I have with the recipes that I create. But it's up to you. So what I'm going to do is really talk you through the chopping process and prepping the apples. That will be the most time-consuming piece, but it's also the time for us to really think about what we're doing. And in terms of mindfulness in cooking, being able to be present is very important. Understanding that when we chop the apples, we are doing it in a repetitive and methodical way, which actually helps relax us. That repetition, think about coloring in a coloring book or counting sheet to help you go to sleep. All of those repetitive actions and thoughts can help actually calm us down. So when we think about cooking, we want it to be enjoyable, and baking as well, especially with holidays. It tends to be really chaotic and there's a lot going on. So being able to wind down, focus on your breath, focus on the task at hand and nothing else will really ensure that you can have an enjoyable cooking experience. So for chopping, it's your preference, making sure that you have a good cutting board and a knife. And we want to really go slowly, making sure that we get around the core. And as you can see, really chopping helps with making sure that we're being mindful of the size of the apples, the juiciness of the apple, and really thinking about the color of the apple. Especially with apples that tend to turn yellow quickly, you can think about that as you chop and think about how the apple got to where it was today, right? So I have an apple tree in our yard, and for 7 years we didn't get one apple. So this year we got one apple, and it was very exciting. And so think about how much energy it takes to create one apple. And you are now using that apple in a recipe that's going to nourish you in a meaningful way. That's powerful. So think about that next time you choose your produce, especially because it was, prepared hopefully at a farm, raised with care, and then now you're able to enjoy it yourself. So I have my apples all chopped. I used about 5 apples, and I sprinkled some cinnamon on there for good luck. I used about a teaspoon of cinnamon, and I put it right in the 8x8 baking sheet. Now it's time to prepare the crumble. So I'm going to use a 1/2 cup of oats, a 1/2 cup of almond flour, mix that together, Then I'll be adding 2 tablespoons of coconut oil and 2 tablespoons of honey. So the coconut oil, it's okay to have it be cold because we're going to mix it together with our hands to try and get that crumbly feel. I'll layer that on top of the apples, bake, and we'll see what happens. And here we have the apple crisp. So I baked it for 375 for about 45 minutes. It got that nice golden brown color. I'm gonna let this cool for a little bit before I have some. But I wanna talk about, now that it's completed and you're able to enjoy it, what do? So I made myself some tea in my nice relax mug, and I have a little plate set out that I'm gonna enjoy it on. And really, it's important to be in the moment when you eat, right? It's important to carve out time for yourself, distraction-free, and to be able to eat intentionally, making sure that you're really tasting the food and reflecting on all the hard work that you just put into it, making sure that you really are in the moment when you're eating. It's very important. And this type of food can be a snack, it can be a dessert, it can be just an anytime thing. Maybe you serve it with brunch because, again, it doesn't have a lot of added sugar in it, so it's going to give you some energy and improve your mood. But most importantly, just make sure that you relax, you're mindful, and really enjoy your time in the kitchen, and also enjoy your time eating this meal that you created for you.
So before we begin, let's just take a moment to find a sitting position that's comfortable within our chair. And I have my plate right in front of me. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is set the way that makes me feel comfortable. And this is going to differ for everybody, but the idea is to make sure that the space is conducive for really enjoying this dish that we are about to experience and nourish our bodies with. As Alex was saying before, this idea of mindful cooking and eating is something that is a journey, and it starts even before we get possession of the ingredients. So now that we're sitting down to eat our food that we prepped and cooked ourselves, we probably already feel a connection to it when we really think about it. So in that light, we're going to extend some gratitude for the effort that we put in to prep and cook the food. And we're also going to extend some gratitude for where this nourishment has come from. If you practice a religion where you say grace before a meal, it's not much different from that. But you don't have to be religious in order to sit down and take a moment before you experience your food. And this is a moment to just be grateful for the nourishment that we are able to put in our bodies. Now, before we even begin eating, we're going to start to engage our senses. The first sense is sight. So we can look down at our food and we can notice the colors and the textures. See if you can pick out any of the ingredients that you put into this dish when you are making it. And give yourself some time to do this. There are so many times where the food gets put in front of us and we are just so hungry that we are just ravenously eating. But if we take this moment to notice what we're putting in our bodies and we take our time, it is helpful for us in so many different ways that it benefits our health. It benefits our health because we're going to slow down while we eat, and it benefits our health because we are aligning our mind and body while we're eating. The next sense that is really great to incorporate is the sense of smell. This is a gorgeous fall dish, and it has fruit and cinnamon and almond. So make sure that you take that time to breathe in and smell the aroma. Especially if your apple crisp is still warm, I'm sure you're getting so many wonderful autumn notes. But this idea of inhaling through the nose. It goes beyond just smelling the aromas of the ingredients. It actually helps you to start elongating your breath. And when we do that, our body, it exhibits a relaxation response. So our body is saying, oh, I'm smelling food, but I'm feeling really relaxed. And again, we're countering this idea to ravenously ingest our food. So we're taking a moment. If you joined my live stream a couple weeks ago, we talked about this when we did a tea meditation. We talked about taking a moment with the tea. This is the same idea. We're taking a moment with our food to slow down and to focus on the activity of eating. Okay, so now we are going to introduce the sense of taste. It's the moment I'm sure we've all been waiting for. So pick up your spoon or whatever utensil that you choose to eat with. And we're just going to start by taking a bite. So just get a little bit on your spoon. I'm going to try really hard to not talk with my mouth full, but as you put this food in your mouth, I want you to take your time chewing it. Don't just chew it all up and then swallow it. Notice if you can taste any of those notes of the ingredients that you put into this dish. And then we're also going to incorporate the sense of touch. Notice the textures that you can sense in your mouth. Now, there's a whole variety of ways that you can experience mindful eating. One of the ways is just like this, engaging all your senses and taking your time. So allow yourself with each bite to just chew and then swallow and notice how your body is responding to this action. And the idea is to not react too harshly or judge or try to figure out exactly what you're tasting and what you're feeling. The idea is to just let these sensations and let these tastes enter your perception and then exit. So it's not about reporting on everything, like this tasted more cinnamony and then this bite tasted sweeter, or the almond flour tastes nutty, but the apple itself tastes tart. We don't have to engage our mind to this extent. The idea is that we're trying to have an overall experience of what is happening as we put this food into our mouths and as we swallow it and it becomes part of our bodies. The other important thing is to take your time between bites. So after you swallow, take that moment to feel what is happening in your body. If I really pay attention, once I swallow, I can still feel the sensation of the food that I just swallowed. I can still feel that sensation in my throat. And of course, now we can think about all the body parts that are starting to engage to help us digest. And there are a lot of body parts that come into play during digestion. When you engage in simple mindfulness tools like this one, you start to see the bigger picture of how we use food to nourish our bodies. Oftentimes we use food to help us deal with other things. So when we talk about comfort food, there's nothing wrong with comfort food, food that makes us feel good. But when we start eating really junky foods with bad ingredients and we use those for comfort, then it doesn't send signals to our body that we are loving our bodies. It sends signals that we are catering to addiction to sugar, addiction to artificial flavors. So when we find food that is comforting but also nutritious, our bodies will respond to that. Our bodies notice that we are putting wholesome ingredients inside of us. And there's a new level of comfort in that. It's not the superficial comfort of, I'm just going to eat all the junk food. This is an idea of really extending gratitude to our bodies. So when we extended gratitude to the nourishment and to where our food and our ingredients came from, we kind of segue from that, and now we are extending gratitude to ourselves, saying, I'm going to put nutritious, wholesome food inside my body, and it will comfort me from all different angles. It's not just going to comfort me in the moment emotionally, but it's going to just make me feel well and good. Now, of course, I don't expect you to engage in these types of tools every time you eat food. But when you are eating just on a regular day, think about how you can just be a little bit more mindful. So maybe you take a little bit of extra time to set up your space, and you decide to eat at the table instead of watching TV or instead of eating while doing work. Maybe if you're eating with others, you invite them to take a couple moments to just sit in silence before eating. Or maybe you decide to invite them to participate in a mindfulness exercise while eating, not for the whole time, but just for a couple minutes, saying, let's see if we can pick out what ingredients we taste, or let's see if we can all name a taste or a texture as we eat. These are all things that will get you on the same page, and then you can go on to using eating as a social experience. And then lastly, when you are finished eating, it's important to tune into your body's response. Finished does not mean that your plate is empty. Finished means that your body is sending signals that it is satisfied. So listen to those signals, because those are very important and they're signals that we often ignore. So when your body is telling you, all right, I think I've had enough, then this is where you can put down your utensil and you can take that moment to rest and digest. And that's about it. I wanted to outline this not to take you through a full-on eating meditation straight through, but I wanted to give you some ideas of how you can incorporate mindfulness into these types of activities. So always remember to extend gratitude, tune into your body, engage your senses, and most of all, slow down and allow your body to do the work that it needs to in order to fully nourish yourself. So there you have it. Lots of great health boosting tips for your cooking and eating activities. I must say, this activity gave me a lot of food for thought, because just like last week's theme, cooking and eating are often things that we do without putting much thought into them. So I hope that you too will benefit from this idea of putting some more conscious energy into these activities that help sustain our health. I want to give a big thank you to Alex for sharing with us all the ways that we can use food preparation and cooking for mindful relaxation. Be sure to check out Alex's blog on livegreenbewell.com and follow her Instagram at livegreenbewell. Next week in the Authentic Mindfulness series, we will get moving. Join me for a relaxing walking meditation. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss it. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me and Alex a thumbs up. Thanks again for watching.